So we were going to talk about the tiara.
Were we?
Yeah.
I thought it said no.
I know, but I just think it would look so fabulous if you
Yeah, but
did.
I've only got little tiny tiaras. They're not really worth it.
The velvet case had been opened before kings, queens, and generations of royal women. But on this day, it carried a truth powerful enough to empty the color from one face and bring an entire palace meeting to a halt. When the jewelers confirmed that the Queen Mother's pearl tiara had been left to Catherine, Camilla did not argue. She did not demand an explanation. She rose from her chair, stared at the document, and walked out. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Silence seized Buckingham Palace. Catherine sat opposite Camilla, Charles held the head of the table, and William watched. The examination had been called before a state occasion, because a historic jewel could declare rank, continuity, and favor without one public word. Senior jewelers arrived with a sealed inventory, and the pearl tiara inside a dark velvet case. The lead jeweler broke the seal. An inheritance instruction was a written order naming who should receive and protect a royal possession. He read the decisive sentence twice. The Queen Mother had left the tiara to Catherine, Princess of Wales, for use and guardianship. It had never passed automatically to Camilla or been assigned to the reigning queen consort. Camilla did not move. Her fingers tightened against the table as she asked him to repeat the name. When Catherine was named again, she removed her reading glasses, placed them beside the document, and looked at Charles. The king tried to speak, but his hesitation wounded her more than the wording. Catherine felt the victory turning poisonous. She told Camilla that she had never known the instruction existed. Kate offered no smile, claim, or triumph. Her restraint left the queen consort with nothing to attack, because the princess had neither created the moment nor welcomed her humiliation. Then the jeweler uncovered a clause bearing the Queen Mother's private seal, a mark authenticating her wishes. The tiara must remain with a woman capable of protecting its dignity and its connection to the direct line of succession, the family line through which the crown would pass. Charles began to explain. Camilla raised one hand without looking at him, pushed back her chair, left the papers untouched, and walked out. The door closed to silence the room. William studied his father's face. The king appeared troubled but not surprised. In that instant, the future king understood that Charles may have known Catherine's claim was stronger before the jewelers arrived. Camilla's departure looked like anger over pearls, but the tiara had exposed something more dangerous, where each woman truly stood inside the monarchy. To the public, the dispute appeared to concern pearls, diamonds, and royal tradition. Inside the family, however, the tiara represented acceptance. For Camilla, wearing it would prove that the past had finally released its hold on her. For Catherine, receiving it meant inheriting a responsibility she had never openly requested. One woman saw recognition being taken away, the other saw a burden being placed upon her. Between them stood Charles and William, each protecting a different future. Camilla had spent years building her place through patience, duty, and loyalty to the king. She believed that wearing a jewel associated with the Queen Mother would show that history had finally stopped treating her as an outsider. The tiara was not merely decoration. It was a sign that the old royal world had accepted the woman who now stood beside the monarch. Catherine understood the danger from another direction. Every historic jewel placed upon her carried a public message about continuity, meaning the steady passing of royal duty from one generation to the next. She did not see the pearls as personal property. She saw an obligation tied to William, their children, and the future they would one day be expected to carry. Charles remained seated after Camilla left. His hands stayed folded, but his mind was divided. The king wanted to follow his wife, yet he knew that challenging the inheritance instruction would place him against a documented wish and against his eldest son. Love pulled him toward the closed door. Duty kept him at the table. Catherine turned to William and lowered her voice. She told the prince that she did not want the tiara, if accepting it would humiliate Camilla. He listened carefully, then answered with painful calm. Refusing the jewel would not undo the insult, he said. It would only overturn the wishes of the woman who had chosen her. The tension deepened when a palace dresser entered with a message. Camilla had already requested a fitting before the state banquet, a formal royal dinner held for important national guests. A gown had been selected. Earrings had been matched. Official portrait arrangements had even been discussed around the assumption that the queen consort would wear the pearls. Charles closed his eyes for a moment. Months earlier, He had privately reassured Camilla that the tiara would probably become available to her. His words had never been written down, but she had treated them as a promise from the man who later became king. Now that promise had collapsed in front of witnesses. Catherine suddenly remembered Anne's warning from months before. The Princess Royal had told her never to accept a historic jewel until its chain of ownership, the record showing who legally possessed it, had been fully examined. At the time, Kate had heard caution. Now she heard foreknowledge. Anne's warning had not appeared from nowhere, and the path to the jeweler's announcement began with one private ceremony that turned a quiet disagreement into a royal point of no return. Months before Camilla walked out, the first fracture appeared during a rehearsal no member of the public was meant to know had taken place. The queen consort stood before a mirror, wearing a replica setting of the pearl tiara, while aides adjusted the height of its frame. Then Princess Anne entered, carrying a narrow leather file. She looked at the imitation pearls, looked at Camilla, and asked a question that changed the room. Who gave permission for this fitting? Camilla turned slowly. For years, the original tiara had remained sealed inside a royal collection vault, a secure store used to protect historic jewels and ceremonial objects. Palace records called it historically important, but they did not clearly state whether it belonged to the sovereign, the crown, or one named family beneficiary. That uncertainty had been ignored until the queen consort's team selected the piece for a state banquet. The choice mattered because Camilla wanted more than elegance. She wanted stability, legitimacy, and a visible connection to the Queen Mother. Wearing the pearls beside Charles would tell the world that the old royal order had accepted her completely. Yet Anne understood that one appearance could create the impression of permanent ownership, even if the legal truth remained unresolved. Princess Anne placed the leather file on the dressing table. She told Camilla that no one should prepare to wear the original until a sealed inheritance instruction had been opened. An inheritance instruction was a private written direction explaining who should receive or guard a family possession after its owner's death. Camilla dismissed the warning as unnecessary obstruction. She said Charles had already approved the jewel's use and that the fitting would continue. The Princess Royal did not raise her voice. She simply answered that the king could approve an appearance, but he could not transfer an heirloom that had never belonged to him. Anne then opened the file. Inside was a copied entry from an old jewelry ledger, preserved with the Queen Mother's household documents. A ledger was the official record used to track valuable possessions, their history, and their ownership. Beside the tiara's description sat a handwritten symbol, showing that another instruction existed outside the standard palace inventory. Camilla leaned closer as Anne read the hidden wording. It did not name Catherine directly. Instead, it referred to the wife of the senior direct heir who carries the family forward. The Princess Royal understood the danger immediately. The phrase could point not to Charles's wife, but to William's. Camilla refused to surrender the moment. After Anne left, she ordered her private secretary to locate the original tiara and continue preparations. That command forced palace officials to summon independent jewelers, authenticate the sealed papers, and arrange the meeting that would end with her walking out. The confrontation had been delayed, not avoided, and when Camilla returned to face Anne after the announcement, neither woman was willing to hide behind ceremony any longer. Camilla did not disappear into her private rooms for long. Less than an hour after leaving the jewelers behind, she returned to the corridor outside the Queen's apartments and found Anne waiting there alone. No aides stood between them. No king was present to soften the exchange. The Queen consort demanded to know how long the princess had known. Anne answered without hesitation. What followed was not an argument over pearls. It was a reckoning over entitlement, memory, and power. Anne had chosen to remain because silence was already becoming dangerous. Servants had seen Camilla leave. Secretaries had heard the door close. Another hour would allow whispers to harden into competing versions of the truth. And the Princess Royal, a title given to the monarch's eldest daughter, wanted the injury confronted before it reached Charles in a distorted form. Camilla returned holding the copied inheritance instruction. She thrust the document toward Anne and demanded to know whether the princess had pushed the jewelers to interpret the clause in Catherine's favor. The question carried more than anger. It carried the fear that the decision had been shaped inside the family before she was ever invited into the room. Anne did not retreat. She said the document required no encouragement because its wording was clear. Camilla stepped closer and accused her of guarding the late queen's family against the king's wife. The princess answered with brutal calm. She was not guarding one woman against another, she said. She was guarding the wishes of the dead against the convenience of the living. Camilla's control finally cracked. She admitted that wearing the tiara had meant more than appearing at a banquet. It would have proved that the family no longer measured her against the women who came before. Her voice broke, then steadied. Catherine, she said, had been handed acceptance without having to fight for it, while the queen consort had spent years earning every inch of ground beneath her feet. Anne's expression changed. She said she understood why the rejection hurt, and for one moment, the anger between them softened. Then the princess delivered the harder truth. The tiara had never been a reward for suffering. It was a responsibility placed in the direct line of succession, the family path through which the crown passes from one heir to the next. Charles appeared before Camilla could answer. He had heard Anne's final words. Love from a king did not rewrite an inheritance. The sentence struck him because he knew his private promise had helped create the wound, now standing before him. The king asked both women to meet him that evening. Ownership would be confirmed formally, he said, but the decision over public use would remain his. The documents had established who inherited the tiara, yet Charles was about to discover that even royal authority had limits. That evening, Charles sat at the head of a smaller table than usual. There were no ceremonial officers, no photographers, and no public statements waiting outside. Only 4 people were present: the king, Camilla, William, and Anne. Catherine had refused to attend, fearing her presence would make the discussion look like a contest. Charles placed one hand over the inheritance file and admitted the sentence everyone had been avoiding. Years earlier, he had promised Camilla that one day she could wear the pearl tiara. Camilla stared at him without blinking. The palace legal secretary had already confirmed in a documented opinion that Catherine held the personal right of guardianship, meaning she alone had the authority to protect, use, or approve the jewel's future handling. Charles could advise on ceremonial appearances, but he could not permanently transfer the tiara without Kate's consent. Charles lowered his voice. Before becoming king, he had believed the pearls belonged to the General Royal Collection, the group of jewels available for official use by senior members of the family. During a private conversation, he had reassured Camilla that the piece would one day become available to her. He had wanted her to believe that becoming queen consort would bring full dignity, not another reminder of rejection. The king finally confronted the mistake. He set down his pen and told Camilla that he had offered comfort before checking the facts. His promise had come from love, but fulfilling it now would mean ignoring a written instruction. She looked away, because the apology confirmed that the future she had trusted had never truly been his to offer. Charles proposed one compromise. Catherine would retain ownership, but Camilla could wear the tiara once at the state banquet. William rejected the idea immediately. The prince said the first public appearance would define the jewel's perceived ownership forever, and Kate would then face pressure to surrender what had been deliberately left to her. William placed a sealed note from Catherine on the table. In the handwritten message, she said she would honor the Queen Mother's wishes, but would not wear the tiara, while Camilla believed it had been taken from her. Kate's restraint denied the Queen Consort access, without turning the inheritance into a public victory. Anne watched Charles absorb the words. She told him that the strongest power in the room did not belong to the crown. It belonged to restraint. Catherine had refused to exploit her position, and that choice gave her more moral authority than any royal command. Charles made his ruling. The tiara belonged to Catherine. Camilla would not wear it. The jewel would remain unseen until the family could present the decision without appearing divided. Camilla said nothing. Her silence was colder than protest, and by morning, the missing tiara would begin revealing the conflict to the entire palace. By sunrise, the palace machinery had begun erasing a future that had already been prepared. A portrait sitting was cancelled. A jeweled necklace was returned to storage. The gown selected to frame the pearl tiara was removed from Camilla's wardrobe schedule. No public explanation was issued, yet every alteration carried the same message. The queen consort had expected to wear a symbol of royal continuity, and now that symbol belonged to Catherine, even though the princess had chosen not to touch it. Camilla's dresser lifted the banquet gown from its rail and carried it away. The neckline had been designed around the historic pearls, making the missing tiara impossible to ignore. Palace staff also canceled the photographic rehearsal, a private test used to check how jewels and ceremonial clothing would appear during an official event. Every cancellation turned a confidential decision into a visible absence. Whispers moved quickly through the household. Servants noticed that the fitting had vanished from the schedule, while secretaries quietly compared notes about the jeweler's visit. No one had been told the truth, but everyone understood that something serious had happened. In a palace built on controlled appearances, unexplained changes could become more dangerous than an official statement. Camilla entered her dressing room alone and stopped at the table. The padded stand used for the replica tiara remained exactly where it had been left. She stared at it for several seconds, then picked it up and placed it inside a cupboard. The queen consort closed the door with both hands, as though hiding the object might silence what it represented. Charles arrived without an aide. He told Camilla that the ruling changed nothing about her place beside him, and nothing about the dignity of her role. The king expected reassurance to calm her, but she answered with quiet force. A position could be announced publicly, she said, while acceptance was still withheld privately. He opened his mouth, then found no words strong enough to challenge her pain. Camilla made her own decision. She ordered her staff to withdraw from several ceremonial preparations and said she would attend the state banquet only in the minimum role required. The state banquet was a formal dinner used to honor important foreign guests, so any visible retreat by the queen consort risked exposing the family's division. Catherine acted differently. She instructed the jewelers through a documented palace note to return the tiara to secure storage under joint supervision. Kate refused to move it to her residence, proving she would not display the inheritance as a victory over Camilla. William then confronted Charles over a proposed explanation, blaming conservation requirements for the jewel's absence. The prince warned that concealment would deepen Camilla's humiliation and leave Catherine blamed when the truth emerged. The family could hide the tiara, but not the emotions around it. Everything would shift when Catherine entered Camilla's room alone. Catherine arrived without the tiara, without a lawyer, and without her husband. She asked Camilla's aide to leave, stepped into the private sitting room, and closed the door herself. For the first time since the jewelers made their announcement, the two women faced each other without a man interpreting their intentions. Kate did not offer to surrender the inheritance. Camilla did not apologize for wanting it. Instead, they spoke about the one truth neither had been willing to admit. Both felt judged by women who were no longer alive. Catherine had chosen direct contact because any message carried through Charles or William would become part of the tension between father and son. The future crown meant the royal role William would inherit as king, along with the duties expected from his wife. Kate knew that if the men spoke for them again, the tiara would remain a struggle over power rather than become an honest conversation between two wounded women. Camilla received her politely, but remained standing. She did not offer Catherine a chair. The queen consort assumed the princess had come to defend the decision or offer pity, and she wanted neither. Kate felt the distance immediately, yet she refused to retreat behind rehearsed palace language. Catherine admitted that the inheritance frightened her. Every historic jewel pulled her deeper into expectations surrounding the monarchy's future. She told Camilla that the institution often praised her less as a woman than as a symbol of what came next. The tiara looked like success from the outside. Camilla finally answered with equal honesty. She had wanted the pearls because they belonged to a royal matriarch who had once viewed her with suspicion. A matriarch was the senior woman whose authority shaped a family across generations. Wearing the tiara would have felt like approval from the past, even if that approval arrived too late to be spoken. Catherine did not soften the truth. She said she would not surrender the jewel, because doing so would insult the intention behind the gift. But Kate promised she would never wear it as a weapon, or allow it to become proof that one royal woman had defeated another. Camilla remained silent for several seconds. Then she moved a chair beside her own and asked Catherine to sit. The queen consort admitted that the princess had not created the decision. Her anger, she said, belonged partly to Charles, for offering what had never been his. Catherine proposed one final path. The tiara should return at an event honoring royal women across generations, not at a moment of triumph. Camilla agreed to stand beside her. Their understanding might have healed the family in private, but within hours, the secret escaped the palace and became a national spectacle. The story broke before breakfast. By 8 o'clock, the pearl tiara was no longer a private inheritance, but a public verdict on two royal women. Broadcasters replayed photographs of Catherine and Camilla beside images of the Queen Mother. Commentators argued over bloodlines, marriage, duty, and acceptance. Yet one moment captured the nation's attention more powerfully than any debate. Outside Buckingham Palace, a woman held up a string of imitation pearls, while another placed a photograph of Kate beneath the palace railings. A national newspaper drove the story into every breakfast table. Its front page placed the tiara between portraits of Camilla and Catherine beneath the headline, "Pearls of Succession, Historic Jewel Passes to Kate." The framing transformed a private family instruction into a public measure of royal standing. Custodianship meant the legal duty to protect and manage the historic jewel. But the public saw something simpler. One woman had received it, and another had walked away. Buckingham Palace answered with a short written statement. The document confirmed that the tiara's custodianship followed a private family instruction and insisted that Camilla's constitutional and ceremonial position remained unchanged. Those terms described her formal place within the monarchy and her official role at royal events. Yet the careful wording could not control the emotions already spreading beyond the gates. Camilla watched the morning broadcast beside Charles. A commentator described her walkout as proof that she could never accept Catherine's future prominence. The Queen Consort switched off the television and told the king that the public had reduced a painful human moment to jealousy. Charles tried to defend the statement, but she reminded him that official language could protect a title while leaving a person exposed. Catherine reacted with equal distress. Supporters celebrated the inheritance as a defeat for Camilla, and Kate told William that no historic object should be used to humiliate another woman. The princess asked him to discourage any language of victory. The future king agreed, knowing triumph would destroy the understanding the two women had reached in private. Outside Buckingham Palace, the crowd grew. Some visitors held pearl necklaces in support of Catherine, while others carried signs demanding dignity for Camilla. An elderly woman told a broadcaster, "A crown should preserve memory, not punish the living." Her words were repeated throughout the day because they captured the conflict better than any headline. The palace then confirmed a joint royal heritage reception, an event honoring objects and traditions passed through generations. Catherine would wear the Queen Mother's tiara for the first time. Camilla would stand beside her wearing a brooch linked to Queen Elizabeth II. Charles feared the appearance might look staged. Camilla answered that she would attend anyway. The pearls had divided the nation, but their final meaning would be decided when Catherine entered the reception, and the Queen chose whether to remain beside her. When Catherine appeared wearing the Queen Mother's pearl tiara, the room fell silent. The jewel rested exactly where history had intended, yet the most important detail was not above Kate's head. It was beside her. Camilla had not walked away. She stood at the princess's right, composed and deliberate, wearing the late queen's brooch. Together, they transformed what had begun as a humiliating inheritance dispute into a final statement. The monarchy could honor the past without allowing it to destroy the living. Catherine entered the royal heritage reception, knowing that every eye would measure her response. The event honored royal women who had carried public duty across generations, while letters, jewels, and personal objects were presented as trusts rather than trophies. A royal heritage reception was a formal gathering built around preserving the monarchy's history and explaining how its symbols pass from one generation to another. Camilla paused beside Charles before they entered. She admitted that every camera would search her face for anger, humiliation, or resentment. The king told her that remaining beside Catherine would speak more powerfully than any official palace statement. He understood that words had failed them before. This time, conduct would have to repair the damage. Catherine turned toward Camilla and quietly asked whether she was ready. The queen consort answered with painful honesty. She was not ready to love what had happened, but she was ready to respect it. Kate reached briefly for her hand. Then the two women entered together, not as rivals pretending the wound had vanished, but as members of one family refusing to let it grow deeper. Charles addressed the room with unusual restraint. He said royal inheritance carried obligations that even a sovereign must honor. A sovereign was the reigning monarch, but the title did not give unlimited control over every family possession. Without exposing the private argument, the king acknowledged that preserving trust sometimes required the crown to accept limits. Catherine wore the pearls without triumph. She accepted the Queen Mother's instruction because rejecting it would have turned discomfort into disobedience. Camilla remained beside her without asking for the jewel, and Kate never offered it. That silence mattered. It proved their understanding did not depend on bargaining. Anne's vigilance had protected the original wish. William had defended the future line. Charles had accepted that kingship could not rewrite ownership. Camilla's walkout revealed the pain created when love, memory, and succession collided, while Catherine's restraint prevented inheritance from becoming revenge. The pearl tiara never decided which woman mattered more. It revealed that royal strength meant accepting what could not belong to you, carrying with dignity what had been entrusted to you, and reopening the door that anger had once closed. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.